tengo el orgullo de ser Nayarita, de esa tierra santa, tierra del Señor. Sus hombres son machos y no se les quita, tratamos el alma por vida de Dios. Nosotros sabemos querer a la buena, cuando a una hembra juramos amor. Ay, del que se mesa tiene su condena, tratamos el alma, palabra de honor.
I did want to quickly say, again, I think Dr. Barclay's out of the room, but did everybody enjoy Dr. Barclay? Yeah. And I wanted to say thanks again to Barbara Lambert and her folks from Home to Home Senior Care. Over here, they've got a little table for you guys waiting, her whole staff. They worked really hard to get Dr. Barclay here, so thank you guys very much. Okay. So I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, which is our next speakers, I should say. So Lyda Consuela, I'm going to blow this, Arévalo, okay, Flechas. Okay, and Dr. Flechas works with the GRECC, the VA. She is a PhD in nursing. Was there a round of applause for the VA? Okay. And so she has done a lot of work in the influence of Latino Hispanic caregiver perception and the experience of caregiving for a relative living with Alzheimer's disease. In fact, that was your dissertation title that I just read. And then Deborah Billa, which many of us know, is with the WellMed Charitable Foundation. She's been with many aging, working in the field of aging for not very long, since she was 2. Yeah. So she's now 27. And so I will hand it over. They're going to talk about serving Hispanic caregivers with evidence-based programs. I'll hand the microphone over.
Good morning, everybody. It's really a pleasure being here. Like Byron said, I work for the VA at the GRECC. I'm an advanced geriatric fellow there. So a special thanks to the GRECC and my bosses for allowing me to be here today, and also to the WellMed Charitable Foundation for being my partner in crime with the projects that we're trying to launch. The reason why I believe we were invited to speak today is because there is a general understanding, which actually I call a misunderstanding, that when we have a program, a mere translation means that that program is okay to start disseminating. Trying to adapt a program in a different language is a lot more than a translation. The reason why we need programs in Spanish is very obvious to most of you who most likely live in San Antonio. I think officially by the census numbers, we are around 59.6%, and officially probably we're close to 70 to 75% of Hispanic population in San Antonio, especially when we consider that many children and many older adults were not correctly counted in the last census. Hispanics are from many different places, but there is one thing that we have in common, and it's our language. Many people here may think that there are several Hispanic subgroups. We are many, many subgroups, but our commonality is the language and the manner in which we are raised and the manner in which values and traditions are passed on from generation to generation. Spanish happens to be the official language in more than 21 countries, but is the second language in this country, in the United States, the most spoken language, of course, right after the official language. Up on the slide, you see the geographical distribution of the countries, and as you see, it's a lot more than just Spain and Mexico, okay? Here in the United States, the darker areas are depicted where the population resides, and even where Spanish is spoken as a second language also in the household. So even though we come from many, many different places, once again, language is what unites us and what makes us a commonality despite many Hispanic subgroups. I believe that there is a general agreement between sociologists, linguists, psychologists, and in general the sciences that language is culture and culture is language. Language is that vehicle that gives foundation to a culture and the vehicle that is used to pass on from generation to generation traditions, values, the way that we perceive the world and how we're going to operate. This is just an example. And I'm sure that you have seen in San Antonio things like fiesta. Anybody knows what fiesta means right here? Okay. Anybody knows what mañana is? See? Because we start getting these perceptions just from the way that we live. So, who are the Hispanics in the United States? It was thought for a while, because of the results of the last census, that by the year 2050, Hispanics were going to be the largest ethnic minority in this country, and that's what you will find in many publications. However, the Pew reports and the census have been able to report since November of last year that that is no longer the case, that in fact, immigration and the growth of the Hispanic population has slowed down enough that Asians will be the largest ethnic minority population by the year 2050. So let's talk a little bit about Alzheimer's and Hispanics. We know that we are 1.5 times more likely to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's than any other racial group. 87 is the average age for Hispanics to live. Our lifespan is a little bit longer. And we are already more in this country, there is more than 1.3 million Hispanics already diagnosed with Alzheimer's. We know that there are a lot more because of cultural reasons. It takes us a very long time to realize that it is time to go and get the person screened. And there are cultural reasons and values central to the culture that explain that. I am not saying that that is something positive. In fact, it's something very negative that requires a tremendous amount of education in the Hispanic community. We believe that caring for our own is not only an honor and a privilege, but a duty. And it's very different how we see the world in a very collectivistic manner and approach, with family at the center of everything. So are we really different? I believe we are. First of all, family plays a central and key role that overrides everything else in general. And maybe somebody in the audience is going to say, well, but my neighbor next door, they are Hispanic and that's not how they operate. I'm here to let you know that it is in general, not meaning to stereotype an entire ethnic minority and cultural group, because among other things I need to tell you, I didn't know I was Hispanic until I arrived in this country. Until then I was just Lyda Arévalo, just happened to come from Colombia and speak Spanish. Hispanic is a label created in the United States. No person from Spain or Mexico or an immigrant will tell you that they are Hispanics. That's something that we learned as we arrived to this country. It was a label created by the federal government for census purposes, and to this day many Hispanics don't know that they are in fact white because they are not black. There is no category in the census that says mestizo, or some sort of racial mixture between white, Caucasian, and natives from Latin America. So perhaps we'll see it in the future. But regardless of where we come from, family is at the center of absolutely everything. It's a priority. How we seek help, not outside of the family. We seek help within the family first and foremost. If somebody gets sick, the initial reaction usually is not, let's take mom to the doctor. It's let's call the older sister, let's call my brother, the cousins, the neighbors, And we value that opinion before we say, let's jump and see what the medical world has to say, okay, in terms of health, even for something serious in terms of health. How we set priorities, family comes first. And I'm sure that you've heard of that before. If you live here in San Antonio and you have relatives who happen to be Hispanics, or your neighbors, or your communities, or your employees, or your co-workers. And that is something that we really, especially if we have employees, for instance. For some people, priorities are somewhere else, and I am not saying that that is wrong. It's just a different set of values. And today I only have an hour to talk about this, but actually talking about Hispanic cultural values is a nice workshop of 6 to 8 hours, okay? So I'm just touching on the tip of the iceberg in terms of values. How Hispanics perceive the caregiving experience is very hard. Hispanics are not going to tell you that it's a picnic. They're going to tell you that it's very hard. But we have a tremendous difference. And it revolves around the word burden. Very seldom you will find a Hispanic that either in English or in Spanish will tell you what a burden it is to take care of mom or dad or anything like that. Okay? The perception is one of being able to fulfill a family duty, regardless of how difficult it is and regardless of what needs to be sacrificed. Sacrifice is something very positive and necessary in order to fulfill that duty. Caregiving in a family, in a Hispanic family, is actually an honor. So that is a very different perception. For some other cultures that may see it as a struggle, as a burden, as a duty, maybe I need to do it, but feeling very captive in their role. So considering that culture is that filter that allows us to see how we perceive the world and how we react to it, we know that our actions and everything that we do in front of a situation is different. So let's talk for a little bit about individualism. Individualism is the central culture in this country. Okay? It's a very individualistic culture versus Hispanics who are very collectivistic. Nothing wrong with either one, they're just different. Why do I say individualistic? Have you heard the expression, the empty nest syndrome? That is caused because there is an expectation that the kids are going to graduate from high school, or if they don't graduate, they're going to get out of the house. You can expect a 26-year-old living with the family still. Okay? They're supposed to be independent, self-reliant, correct? All those things define individualism. On your own. You pulled yourself by your bootstraps, I think is how the saying goes. Okay. Those aspects don't go with, they're not congruent with collectivistic values. In terms of dementia, we have a tremendous problem, and I was beginning to talk about it a moment ago when I said it takes forever in general to Hispanic families to take their loved one to be screened. Out of respect, there is a certain hierarchy that value respect in a very different way in which we approach older adults especially. So many times there are not questions where so-and-so is saying something that is not coherent, is forgetful, that out of respect, many times those behaviors are excused because abuelito is getting old. Okay, he is just aging. So that message, that memory loss, is not a part of normal aging, has to be really driven down in the Hispanic community. And it's a major task that we have ahead of us. Caregiving is a responsibility, and again, a family responsibility. And it is for family only, and it sounds so redundant what I'm saying, and that is crucial to understand because that is why we have so many problems getting Hispanic families to use respite services, home health services. They need to work very hard in gaining entry into their families, into the household, and getting their trust. Respite is initially seen as passing the buck to somebody else, and that is my job and my responsibility. So we reframe things when we are trying to sell the idea of respite. In general, like in many other cultures, the females are the people who usually assume the caregiving role. Once again, support services are harder to use. They need to be sold to the families in a special way, I believe, understanding that, for instance, people will not make a decision right on the spot. They will have to consult with the rest of the family. It's not an individual decision, it's a collectivistic decision. It's a decision made by several family members. Institutionalizing people, talking about the memory units, nursing homes, is more than a traumatic experience for Hispanic families because it's rescinding the responsibility and the honor of taking care of someone. So even when finally the admission to a nursing home or to any institution is impending, actually the caregivers, the level of stress go through the roof. It's much more traumatic than trying to support families in the house. In terms of time, well, some of you smile when I say, do you know what mañana is? Okay, that comes from somewhere. And it's that perception that time is not as important as relationships. And that comes from the cultural value of personalism. So it is a lot more important for me to have great relationships with others than how punctual I am, than how efficient I am, and it's not out of laziness, it's out of I place my priorities somewhere else, and it's that special relationship. There are specific needs of Hispanics in terms of caregiving and the things that their family need. There is a tremendous sense of privacy, as much as you may be surprised by that. But in general, dementia is not something that is talked about because the families are in general very cohesive and the collective are the only ones that really need to know about this. So it's very difficult for people to open up and say, my parent, my grandfather is having memory problems and I'm going to need help. I will be in a state of shock if I'm Hispanic, if that is the first step a Hispanic person takes. That sense of dignity is incredibly important. They in general trying to apply for services, and again, asking for help is a four-letter word, okay, with the Hispanic community. Because there is a tremendous pressure to rely on family. But sometimes, in a globalized world, the family may be here, parents may be here, but the grown children may be working somewhere else. So these children and the people who may be stepping up to assume the caregiving role feel really torn. Long-distance caregiving is incredibly difficult for all of us, but I believe especially for those who place such a tremendous emphasis in the honor of taking care of the older adults. The concept of respite needs to be reframed again, and I will talk a little bit more about this when I talk about the cultural adaptation of the program that I'll be presenting in a moment. And I mentioned already the sense of respect that we have for the older adults, for anybody that happens to be older than me. The use of the language, how we use usted, and tú is very different. The tú is left for people who are very close friends or for children. So sometimes I go with my parents who have very limited command of English to appointments, and there may come the nursing student or the resident or whoever says, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" And I can feel it. I may not be looking at my parents, but I can sense that thing of we're not equal, okay? And it's not because they have a chip on their shoulder, it's because they are a lot older and they don't know this person, and this person comes out using language that is used only with children or with family members or with very dear friends. And the intention from the provider was the very best, to be friendly and to start speaking Spanish. So sometimes I have to explain to my parents and just not them like, be grateful that they're trying to speak Spanish. No. Okay, so given that we have different needs, it was a lot more than just translating a program. I believe that one of the best programs that we have available is the stress busting program for family caregivers, and I say that with great pride because I've been involved in the process for many years. I worked under the mentorship and the leadership of Dr. Sharon Lewis, who developed the program, started in the University of New Mexico, but the bulk of the work was done at the UT Health Science Center here in San Antonio in our own backyard. What is the stress busting program? It's a multi-modality program that takes 9 weeks, and it focuses in 4 key areas, which are support for the caregivers, problem-solving techniques, really in-depth approach of how to reframe a problem, stress management, and a tremendous amount of education in terms of stress, coping mechanisms, and the disease itself, challenging behaviors, and all those things. In session 1, is what we call the Getting Started session. It's an introduction to the program, the getting to know each other, hearing who we are. And every single week there is a stress management technique. So in week 1, it is the foundational technique, which is relaxation breathing. If we do not know how to breathe, everything else falls apart. So in terms of meditation, of imagery, anything else will have something to do with how well we breathe. So it's a special emphasis there. In session 2 are general concepts of how stress affects our body, our mind, and our spirit. And the technique that goes with session 2 is meditation. What is happening to our bodies? What is the relaxation response that is elicited in our bodies when we learn to meditate? And once again, we cannot meditate unless we have mastered and we have learned about correct breathing techniques. In week 3, I just saw that misspelling there. I'm terribly sorry. That's relaxation. That's not my Spanish kicking in. It is not. We learn about imagery, especially imagery. Session 4 is dealing with the challenges behavior of people that live with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's a very intense week and session when the caregivers start to disclose all the things that may be happening at home. The stress management technique for the week is massage. Week 5, we work on grief, loss, and depression. The caregivers learn about, for instance, the model of grief of Kubler-Ross, but also the circle of grief, so they can choose which one they can identify with. Caregiving brings tremendous losses. It's the loss of a partner, the loss of a friend, of a job, financially, socially, your health, sleep, you name it. So it has to be addressed extensively with the caregivers. The stress management technique for this week is art. And in fact, what you see on the slide is a piece of art that was drawn by one of the caregivers. And maybe Debbie, Billa later will, since she's got the opportunity to meet, will explain to you. But just keep this in mind, the 2 faces, the water, that heart, and Debbie perhaps can have the time to explain more what the caregiver narrative was, explaining what she was trying to show in her painting. In week 6, we deal with coping with stress. Our negative responses, our good responses, how we can reframe things, how stressful the changes in family relationships they have been, and what strategies we can implement. The caregivers really enjoy this stress management technique this week because it's aromatherapy, so they get to smell the roses, the lavender, and something that I dislike very much is patchouli. But we talked about some of those techniques and how they can be used on lotions on the bath, not only for the caregiver but for the person living with dementia. Week 7, we talk about positive thinking and how we can reframe a situation, how we cannot change the fact that there is a diagnosis of Alzheimer's. We cannot change the many things, but what we can change and can work on is how we frame the situation and our attitude and response to the situation. The stress management technique that week is journaling. So it's a special emphasis placed in you don't have to be writers, you don't have to be published authors, you're just going to sit there and let it go and talk about the things and how the incredible relaxation response that can be elicited and the sensation of cleansing that some of the caregivers can experience through this. In week 8 is about taking care of yourself and healthy living with 4 specific areas, which are exercise, nutrition, hobbies and sleep hygiene and making sure that people try to protect their sleep time. The stress management technique for this week is music, so they will hear about the Mozart effect. They will play different kinds of music so that they can choose really which one is the one that they feel is relaxing. They will also learn that music can be used not only with them, but with the person that is living with dementia. How is one of the things that sometimes really allows people to connect with the person with dementia. Week 9 is the last session, is the farewell. It's very hard for some of these caregivers to say goodbye in general because they really become cohesive. They become friends. Many of them want to continue to meet. There was in the past one group that decided to create a group support and they met for years. They are asked to set goals. What is going to happen from now on? And that's part. So in a nutshell, and I've gone very quickly through what the Stress Buster program is about. So why do we say, and why are we so proud of saying that the Stress Busters program is an evidence-based program? Because the research that is behind it showed not only that the immune system of the caregivers was responding a lot better. There is something called T cells and killer cells. Those killer cells were larger, higher numbers, if we put it that way, for those caregivers who were going through the program after 3 weeks, 9 weeks, and the follow-up than they were at baseline. In addition, and of more importance, personally for the caregivers, is that we were able to show that there was a decrease in stress, in depression, and in caregiver burden. We used instruments like the SF-36, a depression scale called the CESD, scales that are widely used. The caregiver burden was used with something called the Screen for Caregiver Burden by Italiano. And there were other measurements of quality of life and the sense of control, which is so crucial for the caregiver because caregivers in general feel very powerless and helpless. I mean, everything is so out of control. It's such a tremendous amount of change in their lives. All of a sudden, it's a tremendous sense of loss. So recovering some of that sense of control is crucial for the caregivers. The study was able to show that. But it's not just because Dr. Lewis decided to say, I was able to show this. The whole program went under rigorous evaluation by the Administration of Aging, and the AOA gave SBP one of the highest rankings in terms of evidence. So the program meets the highest criteria to declare a program an evidence-based program. The translation of the program took close to a year and a half, and it was accomplished thanks to the generous funding from the WellMed Charitable Foundation. Their translation team worked very closely with me. It was 2 translators initially. We will have to meet. We had weekly meetings for months and months to go paragraph by paragraph. How is this word in Florida? Are the Puerto Ricans in New York going to understand that? The 2 of them were bringing all the background from Mexico and Texas and Arizona on the Southwest. So many times we will need to shoot out emails to different people of different nationalities and say, what do you understand when I say this? And if they said, I don't understand, we were back to scratch to redraw sentences and expressions. So it was a very lengthy process, and that is just the translation without the adaptation yet. That's why at the beginning I said translating does not mean that we are adapting or that the program is good to go. So the translator may be a professional translator, but there is a lot more thought that goes into something like this. So why was it translated and why was it adapted? Because if we ignore the cultural values and the traditions where we come from, in fact, what we end up doing is causing more harm than good to the families that we are trying to help. I will pause for a moment for you to read this slide. It is the reality of the world in which we live. There is white privilege, and unless we recognize it, then we are being colorblind. Cultural competence, to me, I believe it's the degree of a skill that I'm able to acquire or to develop to make sure that I'm able to address individuals of different ethnic backgrounds in such a way that they feel that I'm accepting their heritage, that I'm able to validate their unique perspectives that they have about life and their experiences in general, and that I'm able to acknowledge that there are racial experiences that they be coming with to the table. So again, translation is not a cultural adaptation. And when we adapt, does not mean that we are changing. Because if we say that the program is evidence-based, then I'm supposed to maintain a high degree of fidelity. I must be faithful to the original program. I cannot say, well, since maybe Hispanics like to talk so much, then maybe the session should not be 90 minutes, but we're going to meet a half hour before for pláticas and visit, and then an hour later for pláticas and visit. So I cannot change the program. I need to adapt certain things. Okay? And I see you here in the front table smiling and laughing, and I know why you're doing that, because that's how we operate. Remember that I said earlier, it's not about time, it's about the quality of the relationships that we build. And how do we build relationships? We're talking with each other that those 90 minutes for the program are sacred. We cannot alter them, okay? We cannot change the program. So how did we do this adaptation? First of all, it was very systematic, and I have to stop for a second and ask, who is my changing the program? Again, maintaining a high degree of fidelity. So there was a sequence that we felt that needed to work with each one of the chapters. Who was the main translator, how I went to the second person, how it came for review, if it didn't work, all the steps were followed consistently for every single chapter. When there was a disagreement, it was not because I was directing the translation, because I said so. We had to reach consensus on what was going to be the best word and expression, and sometimes it was not easy, and it required some research with other people, emails, conversations, whatever it took to make sure that we understood why we were making that change, because using the horn may be a pito in some countries, but it's a klaxon in some other countries. So we needed to find expressions that were going to be understood by the vast majority of our readers. The validation process is what will be taking place, and that will be the last slide of the presentation. We have 20 minutes left. Good. Okay, so we're doing it. First of all, I need to meet with the translators and let them know we're not going to use the word cuidador, and I explain at length why. Because it's a label, just like many people here who are caring for your loved ones, you may not see themselves as caregivers, because traditionally caregiver has been the paid professional at home or the hospital who has provided the care. So when we translate this to Spanish, okay, is the whole expression, the person that takes care of a family member or a loved one, and we stay away from that label because it's not understood by the vast majority of Hispanics. There is a lot of work done on this, and it was part of the basic my dissertation back in 06, 08. I had the opportunity to do a 10-minute presentation for TEDx San Antonio, and the title was All Alzheimer's Caregivers Are Not Created Equal, and it's available in YouTube if you choose to look at that. So the values. Familismo, I've talked about that already. Marianismo is basically the value that is placed on being patient and on sacrifice. Okay? Not just being humble, but patient and sacrifice. Respeto, I mentioned to you already. Personalismo, all about the relationships. Collectivismo is we decide as a group, we compete as a group, we look out for each other as a group, not in an individualistic manner. And the sense of dignity that is crucial for the patients and the families to maintain, and especially that sense of privacy. So all the values we needed to make sure that were reflected in the language as we are translating and we're reaching consensus and rereading. Are we saying this the right way? In addition to that, the illustrations. The original version in English has lots and lots of beautiful, gorgeous pictures of snowing, okay, that people were not quite connected. People of Hispanic origin were not going to connect. So we went from something what you see out there, although that is the Aconcagua, that picture came from Colombia actually. So the pictures were cut in half. Some things, yes, we needed some snow there, but not for all of them. So starting with the cover, you will see that it's very tropical. Okay, so people from Puerto Rico, República Dominicana, Cuba are not going to be left out, okay? And the pictures change from very individual to family, to mountains, to color, to palm trees, things that truly speak to the reader that is Hispanic. And even though that Hispanic person may have been born in this country, their heritage and the roots have permeated through language, through tradition, and they identify with that. The quotes that were in the book, many of them, or I would say 99% of them were changed. So for instance, Walt Disney may be widely recognized among Hispanics, but not so much Mark Twain. So we changed those quotes to things that they were a lot more recognizable. So we use classic poetry, classic literature, songs from Facundo Cabral, for instance, some of those verses. The flowers, we removed tons of flowers to make sure that they reflect the tropical flowers and things that people could identify with. The concept of respite, I mentioned a few minutes ago that I will mention again. It's very difficult for Hispanics to accept to use respite because that means initially that they're passing on the responsibility to somebody else. The way that we normally teach people, you need respite, and we tell them is because you need time for yourself. You need to recuperate. You need time alone. That is very individualistic. It's focused on you. So what did we do with the adaptation? We reframe everything to say, in order for you to take better care of your loved one, these things need to happen. Responsibility is a central value in Hispanic culture, responsibility for family. So instead of saying, you have to take time for yourself, we can say, it is your responsibility to recharge. So that key word there is responsibility, and that's how it's rephrased in the book, the presentation, and the pictures that were used. In terms of fidelity, I mentioned that it has to be faithful, identical, as close as possible as the original program. So the language changed, some of the way that things are being talked about changed, but the program has to be identical. When we train people, the facilitators to deliver the program, we talked about the greetings, for instance. Why is it that Hispanics see each other and we hug each other and we kiss on the cheek? So the facilitators need to be ready for that kind of interaction. How we use personal space, for instance. And I'm very body language oriented, so I tell people, American personal space is like this. Hispanic personal space is not like that. It's the way it's on the picture. Okay? So tremendous differences, but if you are not aware of that, if you are not taught how people operate, why should I expect that you're going to be able to navigate a group of Hispanic persons? In fact, somebody may just pull back and say, well, he was making an advance on me. It has nothing to do with that. Okay? So at this time, I'm going to ask Debbie to come. She is the expert in explaining how the program can be implemented, and I will return for just one slide to give you some news at the end.
Good morning, everyone. Wow, that was loud. I'm so proud of myself. I made it up those stairs. I'm having lower back pain today. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get so stiff, I'm not going to make it up there. But I did. Yay. Really this this slide should say, instead of, or in addition to, how can I implement this program, is how can I participate in this program? And what I would like to do is to ask all of you in the audience, have any of you participated in a stress busting program? I know some of you have, because I see you and I recognize you. Okay, so I want everybody to take a look at the hands that are up. Put those hands back up. And if you have any questions or want to know if you think this program could be for you, talk to those people and see what their experience was. Because I can tell you from having led many of these groups that it is a very life-changing experience for most people. We are lucky here in San Antonio that we have fabulous partners that offer this program in our local communities. And so I want to recognize those so that you'll know who those organizations are. So I'm going to start out, maybe this is, I think this is alphabetical order, I'm not sure. The Area Agency on Aging, Diane and Laura, would you want to stand up? So we recently trained the Area Agency on Aging in the stress busting program. And have y'all started your group yet? Or?
Just finished. Yeah.
Oh, you just finished. Okay, we have to do another one now. So if you're interested in talking more to them about it, they have a table outside. We also have caring companion. Oops, never mind. This is not alphabetical order. The second one is the Alzheimer's Association. So Jenny Bunk and Mary have worked with the program for quite some time now. So please do talk to the Alzheimer's Association about it. And also caring companions, Helen Flores and Candace Slusher. Are you in the room? I know Helen's been wandering around. They must be outside. They also have a table outside that you can get information from them too. And then also, of course, we offer the program through the WellMed Charitable Foundation through our Caregiver SOS resource centers. And as a matter of fact, I picked up this flyer outside. So one of our Caregiver SOS program managers is offering a program in partnership with Memory Care of Westover Hills. They have a booth right out front, and this one starts May 18th, so it's coming up shortly. So if you want to get more information about that, you can pick up one of these flyers. Also, if you're an organization that you feel you'd like to offer this program to the caregivers that you serve, we do offer this in a train-the-trainer format, so we train organizations to offer the program, so you can talk to me about that. I'd be happy to talk about it. And actually, we have this program down in English in, I think it's 12 or 13 states across the United States. We're also currently working with organizations in Texas and Florida to implement the Spanish program as well. So this is the toolkit. You know, as a caregiver, when you attend the program, what you're going to get is that blue book right there at the top that says Stress Busting Program for Family Caregivers. And inside that book, you also have a DVD that gives you relaxation strategies, and you also have a meditation CD. Now, when we do training with other organizations to offer the program, they also get a facilitator CD, and they get the facilitator manual and the training program. So it's a very comprehensive program that Dr. Lewis has put together. And this is our website. So if you go to caregiverstressbusters.org, this is what you will find. And it has all the information that we've been talking about this morning, as well as other information for organizations that offer the program. There are some resources for caregivers on here as well. So again, it's caregiverstressbusters.org. I don't know why we always pick the longest possible name for websites, but it seems that we do that, so I apologize for that. This is my contact information. I'm Debbie Billa. We also have Jennifer Kretschmar, who's been working with Dr. Lewis for 10 years now on this program, so she's got a great background in the program as well. So you can email us at stressbusters@wellmed.net. Again, that's the website for the program, and we do have a 1-800 number that you can call for more information. And then Lyda's going to come back up and tell you about an exciting grant opportunity that she's working on.
I am very happy that we'll get you out of here on time because we are the only thing standing between me and lunch, right? So, okay. I have to make a disclaimer right off the start, and is I am not recruiting, okay? That is a serious word at the internal review board at the Health Science Center, but I am allowed to tell you some good news. With funding from the San Antonio Paper Older Americans Independence Center, that's one of the branches of the Barshop Institute on Aging at the Health Science Center, we will be able to research and to study, to conduct a study to validate the Spanish version of the Stress Busters program. That means that you will be getting flyers, news, visits, presentations, all sorts of things this summer to let you know about the study. It does not mean that it's only for Spanish-speaking Hispanics, okay? So it will be also English speakers. We will be collecting some samples, some of the same measurements that were measured during the development of the English version of the program, but we have some funding in such manner that we'll be able to offer some stipend and partner with your organization. We have 3 people who are bilingual and who are able to come and help you facilitate. It's my understanding there may be organizations that have only one person that speaks Spanish and is able to conduct the session, so we'll be in the position to be your wing person if that's what is needed to be able to offer that. So again, these are all the partners involved, and I left that blank there in the middle because either you as a caregiver or you know of a friend, and we can put that name in there, or you want one more organization that wants to partner with us in this effort to get the version validated for very wide dissemination. I want to thank you for your attention and Alzheimer's Association for having us today here. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you guys again very much. We thank Dr. Flechas. I know I can say the last part, I can't say the first part. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I need cultural sensitivity training. And Debbie Billa, wait, before you leave. We have some parting gifts for our new speakers. So thank you guys again for sharing. One more round of applause. Okay, now I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch. So I do want to make clear that after lunch, we will be breaking up into different groups. So there are 3 options. So this will remain as the central room, and this, I think this will become a wall, is that right? And that will be room A. So breakout room A will be this corner with where this window is, and you can get to it from the doors in the hallway out there. That does just go out, doesn't it? So breakout sessions A, so from 12:30 to 3 o'clock, so for 2.5 hours, that will be breakout room A. Breakout room B is out these doors and down the hall, just past the restrooms. Is that clear? So if you'll look in your handy-dandy outline, those are sessions A and sessions B, so from 12:30 to 3 o'clock. At 3 o'clock there will be, and those will go straight through, and you can switch rooms, it's not a problem. And then at 3 o'clock there'll be another break, and we'll go over this again in a minute, or before, or after lunch, I'm sorry. And then this will be the central room with the Elder Fraud panel and Maria Wellish talking about dementia. This will also be the room where you're getting CEUs. So I apologize, the breakout rooms are not CEU'd, they're not something. So if you're getting CEUs and wanting CEUs, this is the room you want to stay in for nursing and social work. So, is that clear as mud? Any questions, problems? So what I'm going to ask you to do is take a quick break. Lunch is going to be ready in maybe 5 or 10 minutes. We're running a little behind, but I'm going to ask you to go visit with our vendors for just a few minutes. And I want to make sure, I didn't bring one up here. Has everybody been filling out their game card? I'm going to steal yours. Can I steal yours? So your signing, what are we calling this? Bingo card. It doesn't look like a bingo card. That's why it wasn't coming into my head. Somebody doesn't play bingo very often, Jenny. So this is your bingo card, so you just need to get this signed. There are a few folks that actually aren't here, right? We tried to trick you. Who figured it out? All right. So Strick is not here. Primrose Lane is not here. And Humana Senior Bridge is not here. I think those are the 3. Is that correct? So those are the 3 that are not here. So those are gimmies. Those are the freebies. So those don't have to be checked off. We do need to make sure that we fill out the back of the form. Because we're using these for the drawings for prizes. There's some other giveaways out on the tables with our vendors. And so we can't give you something if we don't know who you are. So if you can make sure you get these initialed, fill out the back, turn them in, and then I think after lunch we'll start doing our giveaways. Did you have a question, Nancy?
Oh, I'm done with the thing. Where do we turn it in at?
Jenny, where do they turn these in? I'm sorry. Right by my foot. Oh, there's a basket. Look at that. I play bingo. I'm just not real bright. Okay, so this basket up here, you'll put this in, and we will start drawing names for the giveaways during lunch, maybe after lunch too. Okay, all through the rest of the afternoon. Okay, with that, you're dismissed to go make some friends at our wonderful vendors, and we'll start going through the halls, clanging bells. Carol Birch, our wonderful sign holder, will start running through screening something, I'm sure. All right, thank you guys.
Que ya me voy a la montaña, que ya me voy a la montaña. Llevo mi mochilo, llevo mi corazón, llevo mi mochilo, llevo mi corazón. Y también llevo mi guitarrita para tocar la música.